Hello, Goodwill. I heard you've got a thing for older women. How do I suit you? Do you think that I'm a beautiful older woman for you? You don't need her. You only need me and all my beautiful lady bits of what I have, and they're older. Hello.
Can you offer me an amuse bouche?
Would you? Could I? The amuse bouche. The amuse I can't say it in that voice. I've literally never needed to say that.
Amuse
Amuse
bouche.
bouche. We color us disappointed when I literally Googled amuse bouche after it, and I was like, it's not even a Star Trek convention. It is literally just a general French dining thing where it's like a free starter or something at a restaurant. And I'm like, no! But I like the idea that it literally translates to an amusement for your mouth.
Highly. Space.
Speaking of amusements for your mouth, hey,
Space.
Christmasly.
Space. The final frontier. These are the
Oh.
voyages of the starship Adequate. Her ongoing mission, until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior. To review every episode and movie of Star Trek in existence. To seek out new guests. We haven't had one for a while. And make them very uncomfortable. I
It's
wonder
because
why.
we lost the key for the padlock on the attic, wasn't it? So it's just like we just slip in a bit of food under the door for Mike, being like, "I hope there's oxygen in there.
We told you to be quiet because the Germans are there. To
Give us
boldly
our new
go.
LCARS, you fuck."
To, to, bo- to boldly go where many other Star Trek based YouTube shows, which I also host, have gone before. Good
You're
evening.
part of the problem here. You're doing all these other shows which are better. Yeah. We exist purely to boost everything else.
I am
That's
the STI of Star Trek YouTube shows. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Trekking Up North. I am one of your hosts, Captain Goodwill, and joining me, as ever, is the delectable Geesian from the planet
oh.
Honka. It's Site Officer Synoiz.
Hello.
Yay!
Hello, you bastards. It's me. I don't know
As
why.
you can probably tell, this is another recorded episode because we have had a full to the brim schedule this week. Again, Science Officer Synoiz has been hobnobbing with the local proletariat and
Hobnobbing.
hobnobbing, and then
Distributing hobnobs between people.
I'm still waiting for my chocolate hobnob, you bitch. And yes, I've been very busy on the old Star Trek shows. I successfully interviewed Mary Chieffo from Star Trek Discovery last week and Star Trek Lower Decks, which was an absolute honour. She is a lovely person, so check that out on the Clone Star podcast.
But
And
they all are, aren't they? Like, like, because you're
yeah,
doing loads of wonderful interviews on Clone Star with Mike, and it's the idea of just how nice they all are. Like, and you're just like, can't one of you be a bastard? Like, it's.
you, uh,
Do you ever like
uh,
during the interviews? Do you ever want to prod them and be like, yeah, 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 but you are a bit shit, aren't you? Awesome, just saying stuff just to piss them off, just to be like, come on, be a bastard, stop being so nice.
a little
Next
behind the
convention we go
scenes.
to, I'm gonna start prodding them. I'm gonna
A,
start prodding all the guests.
a
Be
little
like,
behind the
come on.
scenes. When you do the celebrity interviews or online, there is a Paramount representative within the room. So you can't say anything like that because you get a little message going, no, no.
Yeah, no, no,
No,
it's really bad.
no.
We have that on the girl podcast where when we get like some of the, the how do I phrase it? The recently famous guests where they always have like a representative from like an
Yeah,
agency or the BBC or something, and they are there in the chat. They're just not being recorded,
yeah.
but they are like you are sitting there be like oh. Oh, we had one once. I won't say who it is, but literally we had the pre-chat. And then they just called it off. The agent just went, "Nah, we're not doing this." But it was because immediately we were all being like full on, really like silly and laughy, and they were enjoying it. But the agent was like, "Nah, nah, we're not doing this podcast." And we're like, "Oh,
Damn them. Yes, we are here to review episode 5 of the final season of Star Trek Lower Decks, Starbase
The
80.
more you say it, the more it comes real. I don't like it.
I know, it's a very sad time for us all, but we are getting an amuse-bouche of comedic brilliance from Titmouse Productions, so we are very, very grateful for them. We are obviously recording this on a Wednesday because we have a very hectic schedule, so I would like to once again thank Paramount Pictures for the advanced screeners of Star Trek Lower Decks. It is greatly appreciated, and as ever, you can follow the last season of Star Trek Lower Decks only, exclusively on Paramount Plus, link in the description below. So, Starbase 80.
Well, hold on. That's not how it's written. It's written Starbase 80?
Yeah,
that's how you
Starbase
have
80?
to- Yeah,
Question mark,
it's got
exclamation
a
mark.
question mark and exclamation point for a reason.
The inflection is
Exclamation.
upwards. Yes. Yeah, the fabled Starbase, widely referenced in Lower Decks all the way through the series. We get to finally see this rundown station that we will quite rightly call the Birmingham of Starfleet. It is.
Oh, wow. I can't even fault that analogy,
You
to
can't.
be fair. It literally is like every time I end up in Birmingham for some reasons. Obviously, some kind of karma issue. But it's like I end up there and I just go, whoever made this city has never played Sim City at all. Like, this is like Birmingham is what. Sorry to anyone who lives in. No, actually, no, I'm not sorry. You had the chance to escape.
You made a choice.
But you made a choice to stay there. But it's the fact of like Birmingham is literally like when you're playing The Sims and you want to kill everyone off. That's what you make.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, but it has canals. So does Manchester. So
it.
the
That's because that wasn't a canal. That was a swimming pool, and then someone deleted the steps.
Anyway,
That's a Birmingham canal.
so yeah, the episode is lovely called Starbase Birmingham. So
Starbase Birmingham.
you're right. Welcome to Starbase Birmingham.
Self-destruct sequence initiated.
No. Self-destruct sequence activated.
Can
Self-destruct.
you imagine? Imagine though, if they got Marshall Barrett back, but just went, could you do all of the computer voices in a Brummy accent?
Warning, structural integrity has been compromised. The Shale's up. But
You do realise this now exists in our law. Starbase Birmingham.
red alert.
Okay, we're off to a great start with this episode. Starbase Birmingham. Do you know what this is? The fact that we've got this week, and then last week for some random reason I was Ringo Starr. So I'm not quite sure while we're working our way around the UK.
Oh my god, just Starbase Birmingham.
You know what's even worse? My actual notes for this episode literally have in capital letters Boimler facial. And then in smaller letters afterwards, like an afterthought, it's got hair. And I'm like, oh, that's what I was talking about.
So
And I'm like,
yeah.
okay.
So basically the oh god, we're only 10 minutes in.
Shields activated. I don't know how to do the voice. I do the voice.
Docking system engaged. So right,
Okay.
right. The USS Cerritos has just come back from Piscus 9, which is an ocean world, and they're all very wet. But yeah, they're coming back. I love the fact the planet's called Piscus. They're coming back from an ocean world of Piscus 9 where they've been doing some scientific research, and Mariner is working very hard to try and be a good officer, and she actually finds algae interesting.
I mean, it's good that we've got the development from her because all the characters have kind of seen this other dimension version of themselves, like this alternate universe version of themselves, and they're all
Yeah,
working to avoid it. They're all working to sort of get away from that. And I think it's kind of cool that Mariner's kind of realizing that there can be a happy medium between being a cold, hard bitch, like sort of like work hard, and then being the sort of, hey, I never want to get promoted that she started off like season two
yeah.
or three as. And so it's quite kind of good that she's like going, hey, I'm just not going to be a dickhead. I'm just going to work hard, but make sure that I don't get to the dickhead level. And then
She's
obviously we've
finding,
got,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Promotion is not necessarily a bad thing. However, she knows that she can reach a level that she can be happy at, which is a
mm,
progression from where she has been, where she feels like she's been spinning her wheels and trying to fight the system,
yeah,
which is highly understandable. Because again, we reference Lower Decks. We did last season Lower Decks as being an analogy for modern work life, where
mm,
we see people who are constantly driven to progress to the next level, and that is their singular drive. And then you see people who are actually content in their position in life, in their role.
mm.
They don't want to progress. They don't feel it is necessary for them to do that. And it's quite refreshing to see Mariner sort of reassuring that you can progress, but progression doesn't necessarily mean that you move into, shall we say, management,
Mm.
or being a leader. You can progress to a way that is suitable for you and comfortable for you. And it's
But
quite reassuring when you think about it.
well, I think it's really good, and it's also the idea of there's a happy medium you can have with work-life balance, I think,
Yeah.
and that she's finding that. I mean, I this is a personal thing, but I just heard the other day that at a previous company I worked for, there was an employee who was like a proper kind of hard case where they were very much like they were one of the people who always did everything they were told. They fully worked as hard as they could be. They would literally do like 2 or 3 hours unpaid overtime every day. And they would like, so people would give them jobs to do like with like hours until it needed to be completed when they should have told them ages ago. And they would be like, "Oh, cool! I'll stay late and get all of this done." They were proper like a dog's body for everything. And I just found out that they just got laid off. They just got made redundant like last week. And it was always the case. They never got promoted. They never got any kind of recognition or whatever because it was
Yeah.
just going, hey, if you will always bend over and do everything, then why would they ever want you to not be in that position? Like,
Yeah.
why would they ever go, hey, let's move you to a different job where you can't just do everything for everyone all the time? And it shocked me, but I kind of, they've always been stepped all over. And the problem is, it's like, don't make your main job your life because
Yeah.
having that life balance gives you context.
Yeah.
And I quite like that we've got Mariner kind of having that in Lower Decks. But speaking of progression, Boimler's facial hair, I've remembered the last bit there. Yeah, he's actually got a mustache now. He doesn't have the bomb fluff that he had last time.
Stunning moustache, as you can clearly see. Yeah, it's progressing. I'm quite shocked that it's purple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I always thought that Boimler's hair was dyed, but here we see that it's actually just he has got
Oh, are we
purple
supposed
hair.
to make something matching the drapes? Like kind of
Does the
thing.
curtain match the drip?
Yeah, does the
No,
does
we're
the
not getting into that.
is
We are
it a
not getting
chaise
into that.
long? Is it some kind of facial chaise long? Does the chaise long match the drapes?
Oh no, no, I'm not getting into this. No, because there was another term for a moustache, and I am not going to say it on Trekking Up North. But
Send
yeah,
me it,
so
I'll say it.
no, you will not. So the Cerritos suddenly drops out of warp and hits red alert, and they run to the bridge, and it's become apparent that there has been a navigational error with cetacean operations. The water is actually shocking them, and they can no longer.
Cetacean operations, though, is literally the whale engineering department, which
Yeah,
is surreal.
yeah. First mentioned in the Star Trek The Next Generation technical manual for the Enterprise D, where we
Really?
saw cetacean officers used for navigational purposes. So that is the very first instance where it was mentioned that whales or dolphins were used for navigational purposes on a starship, and they just ran with it. I actually did a on this star day, I think it was last week, because it was Rick Sternbach and Mike Okuda who wrote the book. And when you look at the blueprints for the Enterprise D, there was like large swathes of a deck dedicated to cetacean operations, and then it was fully fleshed out in Lower Decks, and then Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 with a massive whale in the middle of Voyager, which was just, it was insane. But so yeah, they can no longer go to warp, and they need to find a new navigational bit of equipment in order
processor. I think I wrote a nav processor,
because they need to get to a captain's conference because Freeman is overseeing a captain scat battle.
Which isn't what immediately came up when I googled it, which is quite surprising, if I'm perfectly honest. But that's what I get for having safe surf off.
Yeah, This episode is sponsored by NordVPN for when you need to look at scat battles.
Do not Google scat battles. Do not.
Google
for the sake of your internet history, do not Google scat battles.
Google it. I dare you.
I'm a scat man.
Google it, Beth. Show your mother.
Don't Google it, Beth. Just Nova's face, just being like.
Oh, so that's what we do in the park. So,
what are you watching, mother?
What are you watching, mother? So yeah, they need a new navigational processor, and the nearest starbase is Starbase 80/Birmingham. And the intense panic on Mariner's face, where she's like, "No, Starbase 80," and then Boimler's like, "Well, we could probably go to Deep Space 6, but at full impulse it would take 400 years." And she's just like, "Yes, let's do that," because she'd rather die on the Cerritos and go to Starbase 80.
I love the idea of it's like, obviously I've criticized a lot how Star Trek sort of is very vague about how travel works. Like, it's not quite Game of Thrones nonsense in terms of going like, how did that person get there in a day? Like, but it does have a lot of.
It's almost like you rushed the final season.
Yeah. Anyway. It's all of that way. Just going, hang on, you're telling me he circumnavigated the globe in a week on a sailboat? And you're like,
plot device.
I'm doubting that. But yeah, but it's very much like that a lot of the time in Trek, where you just go, hang on, why are we traveling at warp 5 ever? Like, when you can do warp 9.
Well,
I don't get it. Where you just go, hey, there's an emergency and we've got to get there to save people. Let's travel at warp 5 because fuck them.
When there is an emergency, they are clear to travel at maximum warp. However, it does use more energy and actually damages the fabric of subspace. Travelling at warp 5 is more economical and produces less damage to subspace.
Budget cuts. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. And
I thought we got rid of that when we got rid of fucking capitalism.
Plot device. So they make their way to Starbase 80. And I love this because the first person they meet, when you get into Starbase 80, because at this point it's still, there was just an A plot. When they get to Starbase 80 and they get into there, you know immediately this is an old station because everything is the original series layout. Very old doors, wall comms, sound effects, and everything like that. And I love the fact that the first person they meet is Cassian Knox, who is in Enterprise uniform. So this is how run down this station is, where they're having to use age-old uniforms. And there's an actual store on the promenade. And I was looking at it when I was rewatching it, and I was like, there's a movie era uniform, original series. There was a one that...
Yeah.
Do you remember Lurch from the original Addams Family in the 60s, where he played that dude in the original series? His jacket's there, the motion picture uniforms, and they're just like, oh, wow, did you make these? No, we just pull them off dead guys.
I think the best thing, though, is that the woman running the shop just has a man's voice. Like, I just love it. It's like... Oh, they're from dead people. But it's just like... I've always loved that, because do you remember the Venture Brothers?
Yes. Who Titmouse produced.
Did they? Oh, okay. But it was just like, I always loved the idea that sort of like the the
The
beautiful
monarch's
woman
wife.
in that
Yeah.
just
Oh,
had like a
honey.
man voicing her,
Oh,
and
honey, you're just fine.
there's just something inherently brilliant about it. Just being like, nope, that's fine. But I
Come on,
love that
honey, we're
little.
gonna rock your world. Yeah, anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, that's all. We are missing though that basically before they get to Starbase 80, they can't go through the transporters because they're not safe for organic matter. So they
Yeah.
have to go through the standard way where they have to actually
Right there.
decontaminate themselves with
The Enterprise
gel,
reference.
which is very much Enterprise. And even
Yeah.
Boimler goes, "Oh, I feel like T'Pol.
Yeah.
Just call me
I'm a total
T'Pol."
T'Pol.
Yeah,
I love that
and
Ransom is.
yeah, Ransom gets way too into it, and it's this very homoerotic scene of him sort of like rubbing the gel all over his abs and pecs and face and stuff. And then you can see like Brotherhood and Boimler just being actively freaked out, like being
Teddy's just like, I don't think that stuff is safe. And he's just like, the more the merrier. Oh, yeah.
yeah, oh yeah. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's it. Oh yeah, that's the stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the weird thing is though, I will say there's mild criticisms of this episode is that I don't think any of that ransom plot pays off.
No.
Like it feels very much like it goes, hey, there's Ransom's obsessed with this gel for some reason, and he uses it in random places, but it doesn't really have what I'd call a payoff. He's just got a weird obsession with this gel, and it's yeah.
It would have been good if they used the gel as like the antidote to what happens later on.
I would have thought it'd be better if somehow they'd made the gel the reason for all of the bad stuff happening.
Yeah.
Like or something, because it's the fact of going, everyone from the Cerritos would have to have gone through that decontamination
Yeah.
and thus used the gel, whereas the people on Starbase Birmingham wouldn't have, and it felt odd. It felt like they put but me having this nitpick points out how brilliant Lower Decks is usually, that it has all of these references and it can put all these references in and work them into the plot and give them a good payoff seamlessly. So then and that's what makes this a bit glaring where I'm going, hang on, wait, this isn't handled as well as you have in other stuff.
So when we get to Starbase Birmingham, we then see the AB plot form where Cassionox meets the crew at the dock, and Freeman and Ransom have to go meet the chief engineer of Starbase Birmingham to get the navigational processors, so they go off on their own thing. And Freeman orders Mariner and the crew to assist Starbase 80 with any repairs that they need to do. Mariner would do anything to get back to the Cerritos because she believes that Starbase 80 is cursed and
Well,
you are
she's
only
been
sent
here before, hasn't she?
Yeah.
She got sent here in, was it season 2?
Season 3 into season 4.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so she was banished to Starbase 80, and in an alternate reality, Captain Freeman was the station overseer. So there is a lot of personal connection to this station, and Mariner believes that when you were sent here, you are a reject, you are banished, you are essentially the lowest dregs of Starfleet, and the whole station is cursed.
And the fact that we've just made it analogous with Birmingham is just kind of terrifying.
It's relevant.
We will die on this hill.
Fortunately, the hill is not in Birmingham. The best thing about Birmingham is leaving. We get the A and B plots, and we see the Lower Decks crew go to engineering and falls flat on their ass because the engineering is upside down because of faulty grab plating. But what I absolutely love is the characters that it introduces in this episode that are just so fucking memorable. I'm gonna have to say it now. Chad the corn dog vendor is an absolute G. I love the fact in the middle of engineering, although it's a very old, like, original series, 2260s, they've got a corn dog vendor in engineering because there are no replicators.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, and I'm so glad that pays off later on.
Yeah, it sets it up really well and goes, hey, this is kind of going to be relevant later. I think it's wonderful though. Like it's Lower Decks' skill is setting up characters that are one-offs, like we had last time, where we just go, "Hey, this character will probably never appear again,"
Yeah,
but they're so well fleshed out in one episode that you want to see. Like it's almost the opposite of Discovery, where you just kind of go like, "Hey, look, here's new characters, and we're going to spend time fleshing them out in episodes that you want to kind of see more of them," rather
yeah,
than being like, "Hey, that person's there to do the thing, and we don't really care about." What else is going on with them, you know?
yeah.
And it's just wonderful. Like you could take any of the extra characters from this. Like, like we say, we've got Chad the corn dog vendor. We've
The
got
Doctor.
yeah, we've got Cassie and what's the doctor's name again? The
I
doctor's name
can't for the
is
life of me
I wrote it
remember.
down. It's
Oh, Clem. No, no,
no,
that's
Harrison
that. Yeah,
Horseberry.
Harris. Yeah, and it's just
Dr.
like,
Harrison Horseberry.
but when we encounter him, and I love the fact it's a great callback to the Next Generation episode with that virus, and he's just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, I told you it was barely noticeable."
It's just like half of his
Half
face.
of his face, and she's just when Mariner looks at him and goes, "Whoa!" and Cassie's just like, "Yeah, he gets that a lot. He's British."
Yeah, that's it. Like the first thing she has to point out is that he's British rather than, oh yeah, and also half of his face is like this.
But yeah, so we see when they're in engineering, Rutherford tries to communicate with Billups, and Billups is making some weird noises, and the communicator shorts out, and we see a green like spark, and he's like, "Oh, that's a little bit weird," and this foreshadows because Tendy's like, "Why was Billups making that funny noise?" And we see as
But
they
no,
go,
I think it's quite good though because what they say is they have a discussion, and it's just a little aside, but it kind of points out like hey, have these little minute sections in your episode to flesh out other characters. Like it's
yeah,
so important. But where it has them having a conversation about Billups, and he's trying to eat more food, so he had a breakfast burrito
yeah,
because he's trying to learn not to be so picky. And I just liked it. It was this whole thing of like we were discussing with Next Gen and stuff like that, where it's the little conversations between characters about random stuff in their lives is what fleshes them out and makes them believable.
it
And I
builds the
quite like,
world. Yeah,
yeah.
it
And
builds
and
the
and I
world and
love that they
realize.
did that. They're just assuming he's moaning because yeah, he had a bad burrito.
It just makes you realize it's a living, breathing crew with personalities and stuff like that. And it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's
And
foreshadowing because as they go through, as we go through the episode and they're going through the station, and obviously they get to the promenade, and it's just like chunky sauce which is unrefrigerated or covered up, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I have one
what is
every day."
it? What is chunky sauce?
I
Like, surely
really
the
don't want
whole
to know.
point of sauce is to not be chunky
I
and to be
really
put
don't want to know.
onto stuff, you know?
Oh, I really don't want to know. And then we get the vintage uniform shop and stuff like that. Um, but
It's
we,
I will say though, before we leave engineering, there's a little stupid little thing where basically at the end of the engineering section, we basically see a dark corridor a dark corner of engineering, and then we see these green eyes and there's these effectively zombies kind of stumbling out into the light. But then one of them immediately steps into engineering, gets caught by the gravity, and gets thrown upwards. So it's like they're fully aware of going, oh yeah, here's the foreshadowing shot you would do of zombies. However, the
smack.
gravity is off. And I just thought it was really funny just to be like, nope, nope, we're not going to do that.
um, so yeah, as they go through the promenade,
It's
they
Akam. Now, can you tell me this? Akamarians,
Acamarians
what
were
were
from
they?
they were from Star Trek: The Next Generation. They were from an episode of The Next Generation, and they were a race that had many warring factions.
Hmm.
So the Acamarians
Is
in
this Tasha Yar's race?
no. This is later on. This is far
Ah.
later than that in the Next Generation. But the station has the largest population of Acamarians outside of Acamaria 3. Um, and essentially, the station is run by Acamarian knife gangs.
But they're saying it's because of a treaty that was signed ages ago that gave over way too much of the station
Half the
control to them.
station to the Acamarians, and
Knife gangs.
Starfleet have yet to renegotiate the treaty because it must be low on their priorities, and it's just
I just love it. Like Cassie's like,
Birmingham.
yeah. Like Cassie is just, it just keeps getting worse with this analogy. Oh
It
God.
really does, but it keeps getting more real.
We're gonna have to do a public apology to people from Birmingham.
No,
Thankfully,
we're
they
not.
don't have the internet or computers.
They
But
can't
it's the
understand our Queen's English. So the we'll have to get a Brummie sign language down at the bottom. The
to get Brummy subtitles.
but
Oh my God.
but then we see Rutherford change
Mm.
in this scene, and we see Rutherford has become this sort of green-eyed, mindless zombie that needs to lick things.
I have been like that as well, but that's called poppers.
Yeah, and then Tendi tries to message to Anna, Doctor to Anna, uses the comm badge, gets the same green spike, and then they look over and they see that more of the crew
And Dr. Tiana.
and Dr. Ta'ana, more of the Cerritos
Yeah.
crew are coming in, and they're becoming like a little bit more zombified, and they're taking people from Starbase Birmingham away.
They're dragging them off.
Dragging them off. We don't know why or what they are doing or anything like that. And gradually, Mariner goes, "This is the curse of Starbase 80. This is what Starbase 80 does to you. It makes you dumb." This analogy is really more relevant than what I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's getting real now. Now that we're getting into it.
But but
We're going to appear on fucking Points of View at this point, and that hasn't even been on the air for 20 years because the
Points of View
BBC
is
stopped
still
giving
on.
a shit.
Is
Is it?
you still on? Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you're just not allowed
Does
to
it not just say
mention...
Laura Kinberg's is a Laura Kinberg's a bitch?
You are not allowed to mention
That's
Laura
my point of
Koonsberg,
view.
Laura Koonsberg, or news presenters' search history.
Yeah,
So we
I'm getting the word. Anyway, moving on.
So yeah, the crew of the Cerritos is starting to descend into like these zombified states, and eventually they meet. What's the doctor's name again?
Harrison Horseberry.
Harrison
It's
Horseberry.
it sounds like they just Google, like, could I have an English name generator, please? And they were just like, there we go. That's your name. That's what you get.
But they quickly realise, because obviously there are two plots, so we're going through this plot before we get to the lesser plot, shall we say? But they realise.
Hang on, how is it the lesser plot? It's got bats in it.
Yeah, for like 30 seconds. But they quickly realise when they get to sickbay, when Harrison is examining them, and he's just like, "Oh well, they've got no virus. I always check it. It's the same virus that he's got. Like, I always check for fun." But they realise that the crew, there's no like biological parasites or anything like that, but the crew is being possessed. But it's only the crew, the Cerritos, that are being possessed.
This is the thing. It's actually it's Cassie that basically works it out. So Cassie has a fight with Mariner, like basically because Cassie grabs when Mariner goes to use her comm badge to contact the Cerritos, Cassie grabs it off her and stamps on it, and then a fight ensues between them. But this
is when we realise that Cassie is actually an Elorian. So Mario's just like, "Wait, so you're like 400 years old?" She's like, "No, I'm in my 30s. I just pay attention."
And that's why she can fight so good. But then it's just the best thing where it's like Mariner's just like a young Elorian is just a regular person. Because effectively, like we've had the next gen, we've had DS9, we've had like Picard that have all dealt with Elorians and fleshed them out. And effectively, they don't seem to have any special abilities whatsoever aside from just living for fucking ages. So it's like, because we kind of always assumed like, oh, Guinan has secret powers and all of these things, and then we're just like, nope, season 2 of Picard just says no.
secret powers, but also very sensitive to time and manipulations of time. So there's sort of that. But yeah, so a fight.
I just love Mariner just kind of saying the kind of, well, your whole power is like living forever, so it's pointless.
Yeah. So a fight ensues, but then they come to the realization that it is not a curse of Starbase Birmingham, and these people are not
purely because Mariner says, "Hey, but Boimler just used their com badge and they're fine." And then basically they turn around and he's turned into a zombie as well. And they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that okay, it is the com badges."
Because
Although
Mariner
it
is
is,
convinced that the Starbase is cursed and it makes
yeah,
everybody dumb, and it just essentially turns people into these mindless zombies. And then Cassie's just like, well, no, people weren't behaving like that until you came here, and the com badge is actually caused your crew to turn into these mindless zombies. And then we see Boimler come off the operating table, well, not like a bed, and he's just like a complete and utter zombie. So Mariner realizes it's not Starbase Birmingham, it's the Cerritos that has brought this issue here.
hmm,
So they need to find a way to get back to the Cerritos, because bearing in mind, Starbase Birmingham's transporters are not fit for human transportation. So they
yeah.
make their way to the Cerritos from Birmingham, and they see. I love this, that it's just like it's the Doctor, it's Chad the corn dog
Well,
guy.
well, it's like Cassie's just like, I know exactly how we'll do this, but I'll need two of my best weirdos. And then the next cut is them getting back onto the Cerritos with Chad and Doctor
Harrison
keep having it down Horseberry.
Harrison Horseberry, um, and they are essentially trying to fight their way through the
Where the
crew.
self-destruct mechanism keeps going on and off.
Self-destruct system activated. Self-destruct system aborted. Self-destruct system activated. So they have to run. They make their way to the bridge where they see Billups just constantly pressing the self-destruct. So they essentially subdue him, tie him up. They abort the self-destruct, and then they realise that the cause of the issue is coming from a certain area, and then the audience is just, all you see is a map and you don't know what it is, and then the audience realizes it's cetacean operations.
Cetacean operation.
Cetacean's operations. And then we get the big reveal
Oh God.
that they are not zombies.
They're not zombies. What
They
are
are
they?
anaphasic beings.
Oh, I feel it coming
Candle
on.
slag.
Coming on. Go on.
Oh.
Oh.
There we
Gone.
go.
We've got it.
Light, you bitch. Light, please. Light. Okay.
I was
Yay!
reading in a particularly erotic chapter of my grandmother's journal.
All hail the candle slag.
Which is the weirdest callback ever to put into something.
No, it is the best
Oh.
callback. If it's your final season, you are going to mention Sub Rosa. Come
They
hell
are
or high
ticking
water.
things off. Like we are having some kind of code of honor reference in this season.
Oh,
you know,
God, I
just
hope
as a
not.
nod of going.
Oh,
"Yep,
my God.
that exists in canon."
No. But yeah, they realise that the electricity and the shocks and everything, it is actually an anaphasic being possessing all these people. So they see that one of the dolphins climb out of the pool and try to like interact with the computers and stuff, and they realise this is not like electricity. This is like the being trying to
Ghost energy.
ghost energy.
This is
and
candle
feel
slag
its
ghost
way.
energy.
It's candle slag. It's
I think-
penetrating.
And I will say though, it is quite fun because what happens is we realize that it's an anaphasic entity that's possessed one of the whales, and that has like spread its reach around all of the other crew members and everything, in order to in order to basically find out about its surroundings.
Yeah.
So the reason why they're licking the walls and they're licking everything is that rather than seeing, they're basically sort of physically feeling out all of the area and kind of finding out about the area around them, which is kind of fascinating in a way. But it's the fact that we never got to see this in Next Gen, where we only ever got one thing possessed at a time, where we literally only got to see like the candle, Beverly, and the grandmother's corpse possessed.
Still to this day, scars me. Still to this day, scars me.
I'm still so happy that we got that for like an end of season or Christmas episode or something.
That was our 1 year anniversary.
Was it?
episode.
Yeah, I remember it was a special occasion, and I was like, this is too perfect, man.
God help year two. But so it's an anaphasic being, and they realize what they need to do is capture this anaphasic being and essentially trap it from interacting with other beings. So they essentially working together. You see Cassie and oh no, we missed Chad because Chad gets overrun by
Well,
zombies.
we missed two things. That when they're getting to the bridge, they basically have to get through a door that's opening and shutting, and the reason why it's opening and shutting is because bloody Livik is on the other side.
Livik.
So you get a call back to a previous series where Mariner's just like Livik, which I thought was a great little bit.
It
And
was a
then
great
yeah,
little
and
bit,
then what they do is they have a massive pile of zombies. And the only way they can get through it is where Chad sacrifices himself by getting out all of his corn dogs.
like
Like they're sort of
Wolverine.
ninja throwing stars or like sort of like Wolverine claws kind of thing. And then he gets surrounded and like assumingly killed or something.
Yeah,
But then they all kind of escape. The rest of them manage to get to the bridge and whatnot. So
yeah.
it is fun, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
back
But
at
I think the
yeah.
best thing though is that when they go to fight the anaphasic possessed whale and it's sort of shooting out its like energy at them and stuff, Mariner like grabs a cable and tries to use it as a whip. And then
Yeah.
gets attacked by it and starts going dumb. And then Cassie steps in, but then they both get attacked. They start going dumb. So it's up to the Doctor to basically get around the possessed whale, and then is literally thinking about scientific things to do, and then just picks up a random net. I don't.
It's a
I think it must be
box.
for. Pardon?
It's a box.
I thought it was. I wrote down like it's a spade, and then I realized that it's like a sort of like a fly net or
All
something to
right.
kind of go through the water. It must be something to sort of clean out the water or something. But
Oh
basically,
yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yeah,
but he
yeah.
picks up that basically and just twats the thing with it, and then like it manages to cough up the anaphasic parasite onto
Hmm.
the ground. Everyone goes back to normal, and then Mariner and Cassie are just like, "Oh, how did you do it?" And he's like, yeah, doctor stuff."
Doctor stuff. They
See,
isolate.
but see what I mean about a character that gets fleshed out, and you want to see more of them, and they're literally in half of one episode. It's
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 crazy, isn't
brilliant.
it? Well, when they capture the anaphasic being, they realise that he's called Clem. Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango. I wonder if that is a callback to what's his name from Star Trek Discovery, because he was Clem Fandango in A Toast of London. So I wonder if it's a
Really?
yeah. So I'm wondering if it's a Clem Fandango reference. Yes, I can
Let's
hear
say
you,
it is.
Clem Fandango. And basically he's sort of like an ensign of the anaphasic beings, and he
Yeah.
essentially stretched too far and became overwhelmed because he's trying to impress his bosses, but they can be dicks. And I
I
love the
I
fact
love
that
that though. It
yeah,
just has he's trying to prove himself. He spreads himself too thin by possessing too many people or whatnot. And he's
mm,
like, I hope my boss, and then she's just like, yeah, but you did a really good job, And then he's like, I hope my bosses see it that way. They can be real dicks. And it's just like things that you don't expect in like like an alien race to say in Star Trek.
but it's really good that Chad survived. I
Yeah.
love Chad. Chad is amazing. Chad the
Well,
corn
well,
dog
we
guy.
well we find out that basically they're not zombies. They're not like eating brains or flesh or anything that we'd actually suspect. They're literally just licking everyone. So everyone that's been attacked, so all of the other crews are just been being held down and licked for like an hour by these zombies.
Essentially,
So Chad's just had quite a good evening, really,
it's
by
it's
my
it's a
standards.
it's a crew of Pauls. Um, so
Is that how Paul sees?
yeah, just by licking. Trust me, I know. Um, it's really weird because today, the day of recording this, it's been 2 years since the Nerdy Up North 100th podcast, um,
Wow.
and it's been 2 years since me and Paul shared our first kiss
Oh
live
my
on
God.
video.
Oh,
Oh,
has he
it's
sent you a
amazing.
gift or anything?
Yes,
Has he sent you like a token of his love or that?
yes, a gonorrhea test kit. So
He sent me a home testing kit for syphilis.
yes. I don't
Oh,
know who
oh.
syphilis is, but I hope she's all right. But
Sif Alice.
yeah, syphilis. Um, so so they are able to restore the crew to their normal selves,
Yeah.
and the lower decks crew proceeds to repair as a thank you to Starbase Birmingham, and to feel guilty for accusing them of being a curse. They offer little repairs throughout the base, and they reverse the gravity and engineering, and just everyone just goes back to normal, and then the
Yeah.
console just comes crashing down.
I do quite love it though that literally like Rutherford has been like going, "Hey, cool, everyone grab onto something. We're going to turn the gravity back on," and they've considered it so heavily, and everyone just grabs onto something. It's fine, and then this huge console just smashes to the ground, and you're like, "Well, you missed that one, didn't you?
Yeah.
You,
Oh
you
well.
failed to pick up on that one."
But no, this was my favorite storyline of the episode.
Hmm.
I think it was absolutely brilliant. A great call to Subaru.
Well, I thought it was really fun having this, and I thought it was great having Cassie was an amazing character to
Yeah,
introduce and whatnot. Like the idea of she chose to be on Starbase 80 because it
she
was a
loves it.
challenge, which is
Yeah,
kind of like a callback to Dr. Bashir being like, "Hey, I want to do some frontier medicine on DS9,"
yeah.
kind of thing, and that she chose to be there, and that she's kind of pointing out, like, look, like some crazy people might think with Birmingham, where it's the fact that she chose to be there because she like enjoys the kind of that kind of
Canals.
life, yeah, and like she enjoys hell, but I do quite like it. She's referring to herself as the scrappy underdog, and her and Mariner kind of like have a connection between them. I just think it's really nice, like to introduce a character and flesh them out so well.
The the B plot of this episode for me is the weakest part.
Hmm.
Where we see Ransom and Freeman looking for the chief engineer on deck 30. What was it? Looking for a chief engineer. They were on deck 33, and they've been told they need to go to the main command center or something like
Yeah.
that to find the chief engineer to try and
They've
get the
traveled a
information.
lot of decks to
Traveled a
get.
lot of decks. They get to the bridge of the station, and they just see him, like, right in that screenshot there,
Yeah.
just gone, just dead.
Passed out on the
Yeah,
console.
and they think he's dead. And again, he's in an Enterprise uniform, red,
Yeah.
because he's an engineer. And he's just like, oh yeah, but they don't know he's the chief engineer up until this
Well,
point.
what it is, it's a secret. Basically, they find this guy in engineering and they ask where they can find the chief engineer. And then he's like, "Oh, he's not here. He's at the arcade upstairs. We don't have a holodeck. We've just got an arcade." And so he basically
On
goes,
deck
"Hey, in order to
33.
get stuff done, you're going to have to go to this arcade and find the engineer."
Mm.
And then he's like, "Oh, but then what happens is when they go into engineering, he's passed out on the desk on the console, and then there's all these alarms blaring, and they're just like, "Why can't you hear this?" And he's like, "Oh, you get used to them. We haven't worked out how to like turn them off." So Freeman uses her tricorder to basically sort of diagnose the problem and then turn the alarms off and whatnot. And it's quite good, but I won't. Let's not do this like properly. But it's the fact of like what we have is that this guy is actually the chief engineer, but he's sending them to different places around the ship. He's tricking them to go to different parts of the ship that need things fixed that they'll be able to fix better than him. And then basically, so they go
On
on
the
this
on the
wild,
guys to find the actual engineer, because he
yeah,
doesn't tell them that he's the chief engineer. He's like, oh well, they're on deck 33.
yeah. And
Uh,
also, there's this problem there that you'll have to
yeah,
fix in order to progress and whatnot. And it's like,
yeah.
and it's a ruse basically. But he's kind of like, hey, if I told you to come here and fix all of our problems, you wouldn't, So it's
But Mariner is also not Mariner. Freeman is also. She does not want help from the Cerritos, so they don't use their comm badges. And she's like, my alternate universe self ran this station and it beat her, and I am not going to let it beat her. I'm going to deal with this on my
yeah,
own. And it sort of saves them from the anaphasic being in a way, but
yeah.
they fight through and conduct all these repairs and everything like that. And what I loved is when they finally get to the arcade after going up all the stairs from deck
Well,
33.
basically, what they do is they try and get to they try and get to the arcade, but the lifts don't work properly. And this is something I don't. The lifts have a handle in it that's like
Yeah.
a sort of way you communicate. What is that from? Is that from the original series?
That's from the original series. So
I've never noticed that.
Starbase 80 is a starbase constructed around the 2260s, apparently. So everything has not been upgraded since the 2260s. As Cassia says, it's retro vintage. So you see original series hallways with paint schemes, wall-mounted communicators, as they mention, and with the turbo lifts, they are twist interaction. So on the original Enterprise, when they get into a turbo lift, they would grab hold of the handle, twist it, and say deck 3, and that's how they would get to deck 3.
How have I never noticed that?
Well, yeah. So they when they get into the turbo lift and Ransom's like, these are one of the twist offs. I expect you used one of these when you were ensign. She's like, I am not that old. And so they asked to go to deck 33, the arcade, and it takes them right to like 33 decks below that in the sub basement.
It takes them to a floor called Maintenance Labyrinth,
Yeah.
which is the most ominous name for a deck I've ever heard of. It sounds like a level in a video game, you know? Like, it sounds like something from System Shock.
But when they get there and they encounter the chief engineer, they don't know it's the same person.
Well, they basically they find him. They recognize that it's the guy who was asleep in engineering, but he's got his head stuck in a pipe. And then when they pull his head out of the pipe, loads of bats come out, and he's like, "Yeah, we've got a big bat problem on this deck." And it's just a surreal thing, and it's like, okay, right. And then he goes, "Hey, if you could fix the oxygen problem on the level, that'll be fine." So Freeman goes and fixes the oxygen with a tricorder and whatnot. And then he's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Now I'll lead you to where the arcade is." And then leads them to this thing. And he goes, "Hey, here's the stairs. You just need to go up 30 flights of stairs and that'll take you to the arcade." And then leaves them behind. So, and obviously Ransom's fine with it, because Ransom's hilarious, actually. What does he say? He's
time to bless my quads.
Yeah, he's like, my glutes, the power of stairs.
Yeah. When they get up 30 flights of stairs and he's just like, whoo, and she's just dying on it.
Yeah.
I love this bit though, when they finally
and the engineer just leaves them. Like, the engineer doesn't go with them. He just stays where he was.
Yeah. When they get to the arcade and they're confronted by like the gang of Akamarians, and Ransom's just like, "Careful, Captain, these people are dangerous." And they're just like, "We don't appreciate Starfleet types around here unless you go into the arcade." And they're just like, "Well, actually, we are." "Oh, well, it's just over there. Have some free tokens on that." I love it.
This surreal setup of this like threatening knife gang, and then they're like, "Oh, you go to the arcade? Oh, that's fine." It's just a dumb little thing, you know.
But when they get there, and it's the same goddamn engineer, and now he's got Scotty's waistcoat on as well.
Well, it's the fact that he's got there before them, which suggests that they didn't have to do the fucking stairs. Like, it's just. But and then they basically go like, "Hey, you need to tell us right now where the chief engineer is." And then one of the Akamarians in the background just kind of goes, "That is the chief engineer." And then they realize that he's been deceiving them, and he comes clean and goes, "Hey, you wouldn't have fixed all those things if I'd actually asked you to. So I kind of led you astray to do it. But if you'll just help me with is it the bat problem he wants to fix with?"
Yeah, so basically he's been asking Starfleet to send out a group of engineers to fix problems for months, and they haven't sent anyone.
Yeah.
So he sort of played a trick on them to conduct a number of repairs around the station. And he's like, "Hey, but if you help us with the bat problem in the maintenance labyrinth, I'll gladly give you the navigational processor." And what I love about this
Sorry, I'm getting distracted because I keep looking at the webcam, and I'm like, I don't really look as much like Beverly Crusher as I do Stevie Nicks after a binge. So I'm a bit kind of concerned at the minute.
Shall we change to normal mode, shall we? Hang on.
Well, change to normal. Okay, we take that.
Change to normal mode.
Okay. It's so itchy, man. I haven't had hair for so long that it's all just. Stop breathing in the the ghost, the anaphasic ghost.
Smooth. Oh, I'm being penetrated by my grandmother's boyfriend. But oh my god, that is really smoking. There we go. But Yeah, so what I love about it is the air plot with the anaphasic being is resolved, and then the lower decks crew realize that Freeman and Ransom are still trying to find a navigational processor, and the episode ends with them still in the maintenance labyrinth catching all these bats in the container, and then they're
Yeah.
just like, oh, that's all of them bats, but then we got the mother right here, and it's just like this massive fuck off bat at the end.
Well, we don't ever see the actual size of it, but like
Just the
Freeman's like,
eyes.
no, we gotta take that out. We just see these glowing eyes, and then Freeman running into the darkness towards it, and then it's like, it's like Ransom's like, it won't even fit in the cage, and she's like, not with that attitude.
Not with that attitude. Yeah.
I just love how desperate she is to avoid her alternate universe self. Like she's just like, nope, I'm not gonna let Starbase 80 beat me. And to the point where she's gonna go and chin a fucking bat. And I just love the whole setup of like how well Freeman is portrayed as a character. And I'll probably disagree with you. I did like this as a B plot. I think it is the weaker plot.
Yeah.
But it's the fact of it is still a fun one, the way that we've put it, I think.
Yeah.
And it is quite fun. And also little nods, like, did you see that in the arcade, when they're in the arcade, they had like Space Invaders, but it was with the Enterprise. So rather than the alien
like
ships,
Romulan
it's all like
invaders, and then Ferengi's Fortune and stuff like that. And then they had another one where it was like a fighting game, but it was aliens. And I can't remember.
It was weird. It was a fighting game, but then it was like flames and then a cardboard box on the other side. And I was like, I don't know if that's a reference or not. It's just a weird game in the background.
I don't really know, because I tried to look at the other games and I couldn't really get a good good view on it. Because every time the thing is, guys, like when it comes to a little bit of behind the scenes, when you get to screeners and you can't press pause. Because when you press pause, it blanks out the screen. When you try and do a screenshot, it blanks out the screen because obviously, understandably, they are very protective.
And it also puts our email address over the screener. So
that is why.
So there are bits of it that are clear, but then there are bits of it where it just goes, hey, this is an important bit, and then your email address is over it. So if you take a screenshot of that bit, they're going to know exactly who that leaked from.
That is why there is only 3 screenshots down below. That's all CBS released this week. 3 screenshots. So I had to.
I remember you panicking about it, being like, I don't have enough bloody screenshots.
I had to intermingle it with promo material. So that one right there, right at the far end, that's the season 5 poster, because I was just like, I haven't got enough. So it's just like, so bless Paul, he had to do what he could do with 3 images and sort of slice them up into the uniform banner that we had at the beginning of the episode. So bless him for that. But yeah, so I tried to catch up, but obviously we can't, because you can't pause it, you can't see anything. But overall, another stellar episode where we get to see another sort of mythos fleshed out, brought to life. We've got to see Starbase.
That no one was asking for.
No one was asking
for anaphasic beings to be fleshed out more. But
again, but it was an Enterprise reference heavy episode as well, because we got to see the gel, we got to see the decon chamber. Sorry, decontamination chamber. I can't say decon.
But what decon?
Because references.
Oh,
but
okay.
we this is where but we get to see the decon chamber, we get to see the Enterprise uniforms fully fleshed out as well, and I just love that there's still referencing Enterprise. Again, I am calling
He's desperate to wear it,
for an Enterprise reference. Don't look.
Do I need to fix the Dabo wheel? Do I need to fix the Dabo wheel so we can get an Enterprise episode?
There we go. I am desperate for. Oh, this is very uncomfortable. I am desperate for Enterprise to come back, or have some sort of mini series, or just something to properly resolve it, because These Are the Voyages does not exist. No. So I love the little references to that, but this was another very solid episode, very funny episode. as well. Because again, what Lower Decks does brilliantly, it's the tiny little moments that make it all the more
Mm.
enjoyable. And when you see when you see Harrison Hawks, what was it?
Harrison Horseberry.
Harrison Horseberry, and you see Chad, the corn dog guy, and stuff like that. It's those tiny little moments that just make the episode absolutely brilliant. But yeah, is there any other notes that you've got for this episode?
I don't know. You know what? I'm going to be a bit more critical. I would actually say this is my least favorite episode of the season so far. Of the season so
Why?
far, I just, for some reason, it just didn't gel with me as much. Like it just felt like it was, you know, that whole thing. It's like, you know, when you're watching Family Guy and then you realize, oh, all of the humor is just random references. Like, oh, this is like the time when Berber, and then you kind of go, wow, like 90% of the humor is just that, and that's how it does it. So it's kind of like seeing how the sausage is made or seeing like the strings behind the puppet kind of thing.
Yeah.
It felt a bit like that in this, where it was just going, wow, this is an episode and it's a fun episode, but it did feel like a lot of references chained together by a story.
Hmm.
Like not like it usually is. But I'm saying it's a great episode, but I do think like it was a little bit of a middle of season dip
Filler
compared
episode.
to the amazing episodes that we've had so far. Because
Yeah.
it has cool stuff. Like, you know, I'm going to be referencing bits of this episode like forever, but I did feel like it wasn't as fluid as the rest of the series. But yeah, but it's still brilliant though.
Yeah. It's
And I
it's
like that
not
we got random loads of Billups, but like, because I love Billups, but like in a weird, he was a zombie, but just smashing stuff around for most of it. Like he was referenced, but not seen for much of it.
it's not a farewell to farms because
Hmm.
that was a amazing episode and we got to use the term amuse bouche so many times.
Yeah.
And it was an episode that fleshed out Klingons and Klingon culture and society, which I really loved.
Hmm.
But this was yeah, it was a fun episode. It was chained together. It was a lot of references chained together by a basic storyline. But they
And
did bring back the anaphasic beings.
yeah, and I like that it because this is something you don't usually see, like the other side of Starfleet and the neglected side of
Yeah,
Starfleet, where you just kind of go like, yeah, Starfleet is spread pretty thin, and it's the fact that it's like it constantly has stuff going on. Like you have the Dominion War, you have like sort of the Klingon War, you have the Romulan War, all these different things happening, and in the background you've got, hey, here's a starbase that it's not really in any danger, it's not really in a tactical area or anything, so it just gets neglected. And it's the same as any company where you just go, hey, this we've got other things to deal with, so we're just going to keep forgetting about this. And it kind of points out that the Federation isn't as wonderful as we think, where it, like, you know, it equally cares for everyone. It literally does
but
have little pockets of it that get forgotten.
but here's the thing, like what you have to realize at the time that Lower Decks is set, it's 5 years after the Dominion War.
Mm.
So Starfleet is still rebuilding, and then it's a very weird period, as we saw
Mm.
in Prodigy season 2, with the whole they just recovered from the Dominion War, and then they were helping with the Romulan evacuation, and then Mars was destroyed. So
Yeah,
then a large swathe of their shipyards and everything was destroyed, and everything is just Starfleet is in a period where they are very thin on the ground,
yeah,
and they have got a lack of ships and a lack of resources, and they are essentially in a rebuilding period. So you get to
yeah.
see with
But
Lower
that
Decks.
does mean that things get neglected.
Yeah, exactly. So you see things neglected and you see ships run down and you see stations run down, and it's just like, yeah, but these ships are vital because they are doing the undesirable jobs that no one else can do or won't do because they are thin on the ground. And it's like, yeah.
Mm.
But then you sort of realizing, well, that's why there hasn't been very many second contacts, and that's why the events of the
Yeah.
next generation and DS9 and Voyager, well, not Voyager, but like when they've made contact with an alien race and then blasted away, and then that's it for that week.
Yeah, that's
And then
it. They're
you
like, hey, we
yeah,
would go back, but something else came up, so we never
yeah,
actually or we've had to send like a lesser crew to kind of follow up on things. That's basically lower decks, isn't it?
But it's quite interesting when you think about it holistically that lower decks they are the second contact team, and the reason that there is a second contact team is Starfleet and the Federation are so desperate for more allies and for more people to join the Federation because of the events that happened. So they need to fortify their frontiers, to fortify their territory, and they need more resources. And it's not a conquest, but it's sort of they are desperate for more alliances, and that's where the crew of the Cerritos and the other Kali classes come in, because they are like, hey, we've made first contact, you need to go and set up a post, or you need to provide them with equipment so they can quickly advance to the rest of the Federation's level. So it's very interesting. Like when you look at what was the episode where they just done the episode 2. Not the best exotic. That was episode 3, but it was episode 2 where that society had just given up capitalism, so money was no longer a thing, and they had and they had replicators. But it's like, the Federation would do that and make them their ally as quick as possible, because they need as many allies as they can. Because if you think, like, in the space of 20 years, they had a Borg invasion twice. They had the Cardassian War. They had the Dominion War. And then you see, like, later on in Prodigy, they had, like, the divine thing from Prodigy that essentially destroyed half the ships in season 1.
Oh, the Diviner.
The Diviner, destroyed half their ships. And then, obviously, at the end, the synth rebellion, like not rebellion, but the synths turning and destroying Mars. So it's like in the space of 20 years, a lot of things happen that sort of takes its toll.
And I like that though, because it's the fact of like when you're the one being neglected, it's always, you can feel for yourself or whatever and stuff like that. But it's the fact that there's always kind of a reason why you're neglected, because there's all this other stuff happening. It's never intentional, but it kind of adds this depth to Starfleet by going, they are struggling. I mean, this is the hilarious thing. It's the fact of this is probably what DS9 would have been had the wormhole not been discovered.
Yeah.
Like, that's why Cisco is so, why have they put me on this shithole, like, sort of station with, like, my only job is to get this tiny race of people, the Bajorans, to join the Federation. That's my whole job here.
But that's the thing for the first 2 seasons, isn't it? Like, there's no Federation starships within the vicinity. They're quite literally on the frontier.
But that's what it should have been. It should have, like, the whole series. No, I'm not saying it should have been, but that's what it would have been had the wormhole not been discovered. And then Starfleet's like, oh, this is a massive tactical position kind of thing. And oh, right, okay, cool. And, and then had they not have had to move closer to the wormhole using technology that the greatest engineer of all time, Miles O'Brien, came up with, and then no one has ever used again, which seems a bit suspicious. But I love that though, where he makes a warp bubble around DS9 in order to reduce its weight to nothing, so that the impulse engines can literally make it travel really fast. And you're like, that's absolutely genius. Why has no one ever done that again?
That's literally warp drive.
No, but it's is it?
Yeah.
Actually, here's a question while we're here. Here's a question while we're here. A mate was saying after the Dominion War, Admiral Ross is pretty much in charge of Starfleet. Is that true? Who's in charge of Starfleet after the Dominion War?
That would be the CNC. So Starfleet, very much like the Navy and military, there would be a hierarchy. So you would have like, I don't know what we have in the British Navy, but obviously we have like fleet admirals, and we have like Grand Admiral. I think it's a Grand Admiral, I believe.
Grandad Admirals.
Grand Admiral.
No, it's Grandad. Grandad.
I'm gonna have to have a look at this.
It's like an admiral who gives you like a Werther's original and makes you sit in his lap.
Head of the Navy.
Now I'm the Grandad Admiral.
Okay.
And what would I give to my kids? And Werther's original.
No, what's his First Sea Lord.
Sea Lord.
So in the Royal Navy, the head
is that a Lord of Seamen?
Yeah. In the head of the Royal Navy is the First Sea Lord, and I think in the American Navy it's like the CNC. So it's like the
Sounds
kind
like
of junior
Warhammer.
one. But it's essentially so what it would be if there were thin boots on the ground, an admiral would take the responsibility of more fleets. So an admiral is in charge of a fleet of starships. So they would have, say, because the way Starfleet's broken up, it's very much like the American Navy. So there's like a single task force of, say, 10 ships. And that's what Admiral Ross would. But Admiral Ross obviously was in charge of a lot more during the Dominion War. So, yeah, I would quite frankly say that Admiral Ross, towards the
Like,
end of the Dominion War, was more or less in charge of a large majority of the fleet.
well, he could have literally just had a coup. He could have literally just gone, "Hey, I'm literally in charge of all of these things. I can do what I want, pretty much."
Do you really
So,
want to mention coup after last week?
whoops. But no,
Great guy, love Admiral Ross. Great guy, has a fantastic bell. I always say, got the greatest bell. Great bell, great Admiral Ross, not Admiral Jonathan Ross, because Jonathan Ross has got wavy hair. We don't like wavy hair here. No, we don't like wavy hair. We love Admiral Ross. He's got a great
it would be
uniform.
funny if this guy wasn't now in charge of the biggest. What do you call it? I don't want to say power. I want to say like the biggest land mass in America. I don't know. I don't know. It's not
In
the.
charge of
Although I
all of
heard,
our fates. That's all I'm
yeah.
going to say.
Although I did hear a hilarious thing earlier. Someone was saying that there's like American states that are now sort of considering maybe uh
Seceding.
seceding to Canada. And
Right.
you're just like, and you're like, you have all these people being like, no, no, everyone loves him and it's all just left propaganda or whatever. And I'm like, I think if a state leaves your country in order to join another country, that's like the biggest
I could
evidence I can think of that they're not happy,
I could kind of see Washington, Oregon, and California just going out.
Yeah, that's it. I think that would be hilarious, to be fair, because these states have got to think in their own best interests, and I think
Oh my
a
god.
lot of people over there are panicking right now.
California, Canada. I love it. The warmest place in Canada is Los Angeles. But yeah,
That
so
would mean that still would that mean that Starfleet moved to Canada?
Starfleet's Canadian.
Is it? Yeah.
Starfleet would be Canadian. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
there we go.
I mean,
There we go.
Starfleet is of Earth, but yeah, it would
It's
definitely
canon now.
yeah.
Of Earth,
Um,
of Bejor.
Nice France. Oh my god, Los Angeles, nice France. I love it. But yeah, that has been our review of episode 5, Starbase 80 of Lower Decks.
Starbase Birmingham?
Starbase Birmingham. That has been our review. Oh, hang on. Sorry. Anaphasic being. All right, that has been our review of Starbase 80 or Starbase Birmingham. I'm absolutely bloody boiling in 2 Starfleet uniforms right now because I've got this on and I've also got my Lower Decks one on, so I'm absolutely mafting.
Mafting, is that a technical
Mafting,
term?
yeah. I'm Baltic apparently. But yeah, so any other notes for this episode?
No, no.
Nothing.
I think that's everything. Yeah, it's just I thought it was a really good episode, but it was my least favorite of the season so far. But and it might also be the worry of going we're halfway through the last season of Lower Decks, and it makes me sad.
Sad, very sad. But we have got episode 6 coming next week, so we will be here same time, same place to review episode 6 on Trekking Up North. If you liked this video, please hit that like button, please. You have no idea how much it helps if you are not a subscriber to the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel. What are you doing? We produce content constantly. It is an never ceasing conveyor belt of trash. I mean, pure amuse bouche of content that we produce. We have Twitch, we have all the social medias. Science Officer Synoiz has the Velvet Snatch YouTube channel and thevelvetsnatch.com. I, Captain Goodwill, am on X/Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Everything is down below. You can find me on all the social media. I don't, yeah. Do you have anything to promote this week?
I do. I have the Nerdy Up North quiz, which will be Saturday the 23rd. So it will basically be next Saturday from the airing of this episode. The theme is going to be fantasy.
Fantasy?
The theme is going to be fantasy. This is SETI Alpha 5.
This is City Alpha 5! Ooh,
Yeah, the
I
theme
just
is
hurt
going
my
to be
groin doing that. Ooh.
fantasy. So we're going to be like expect a lot of rounds about fantasy movies, fantasy television, fantasy video games, and whatnot, such as like BioWare. And I think there's gonna be a whole round about the Lord of the Rings because we haven't really touched on the Lord of the Rings that much in 6 nerdy quizzes so far. So it's like, yeah, so we're gonna do that, and it's quite fun. And I think it's gonna be hosted by Candy Snatch, who hasn't
Oh,
hosted a quiz yet, which
oh my
should be
god.
quite fun
Oh
because she's
my
got
god.
everyone's fantasy in it.
Oh. Oh no. We've gone from
Although
Birmingham to Essex.
Although it's hilarious because she sounds like she's from Essex, but actually she just had a brain hemorrhage. But it's the problem is I have to go to I the problem is with the 23rd. I was trying to avoid doing that date, but it's the only one that works for everyone because I'm meant to be going to like a Polari workshop like through Gateshead,
Hmm.
but it's literally, it gives me an hour. It gives me like 2 hours from the finish of that workshop to get to the quiz. And I'm just like, am I going to have to go to this very serious kind of like workshop thing dressed as Candy Snatch with like
Please
a
do.
wig and fake breasts and just be
Please
sitting
do.
there being like, what an interesting lecture. You know,
Please do. I am
I'm going to
getting
have to get
this.
on the metro dressed as Candy Snatch for this.
I'm getting this barnet finally cut on the 23rd. I'm going to get the frosted tips back, but this hair is so thick
It's
right
taken
now.
over.
It's unbelievable. It's gone feral. It really has gone feral. Like, honestly, I sit there at work and I'm just like, all the
Because
time.
we're worth it, girls.
Yeah, L'Oreal. Because is that maybe
No,
she's
a
she's born
Lorian.
with it. Yeah,
A Lorian.
L'Oreal.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it was 400 years ago.
Yeah, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's herpes. But yeah, that has been our review of Starbase 80. I would like to thank my very delectable Yesian Science Officer Synoiz for being with me as ever. Honk!
Honk!
I have been Captain Goodwill, and until next week, I want you all to stay safe, live long and prosper. And as ever, as we end Trekkin up north, Miles,
The
Miles,
claws! The
Miles,
claws!
Amuse Bouche.
The moose.